Live from the Talking Joe studios. It's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it's me, Mark, and welcome to Talking Joe, the G.I. Joe comics podcast. Now, today we are looking at G.I. Joe issue number 326 of that series they call A Real American Hero, which was released Wednesday, the 11th of March, 2026. The synopsis for this issue reads, "No turning back. Duke, Roadblock, Scarlett, and Snake Eyes head deep into Trucial Abysmia on a rescue mission with enemies around every corner." Now, did that issue deliver the promise? We will find out very soon. If you are new to the show, you can find out all of the details over at the website, talkingjoe.co.uk. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're an audio-only listener, because this does get dropped as potentially a live episode, a reminder of the episode on video on a Thursday, and at the same time on audio-only platforms on all of your favorite podcast platforms. So if you are an audio-only listener, do give a little review on there and tell us how great we are, because I am very thin-skinned. So I will not be talking about this issue on my own. As always, I will be joined by my co-host. It's a real American Tim. It's Tim Finn.
Hello, Mark, listeners, viewers.
And as always, as we on a live episode, it means that people can interrupt. Crikey, they can interrupt and interact, just like, look at it, watching live. It's Chris, the Full False Podcast. Sup, Chris?
Aren't you too busy? Don't you have your own live stream to get ready for in 2 hours?
I'm sure he's just super prepared, as I'm sure he always is. And seeing how Chris is there, I thought I'd bring back an old feature from the old Talking Joe days about drink for the show. Now, when I went shopping for Mother's Day, UK listeners, we have Mother's Day tomorrow, the Sunday, the 15th of March, and while I was in the posh supermarket, I encountered this. It's called Living Things Watermelon and Lime. That sounds nice. It also says prebiotic soda, which I'm not too sure if the adjective is nice or just a bit crikey. What's that's going to be? So there we go. That's opening that.
We've certainly given something for our listeners to enjoy.
Crikey.
With that sound.
Can you hear that sound? That is really super kind of pink, watermelon-y. I can see the pink of the watermelon. I can't see the black pips of the watermelon floating about.
Listeners, it's as bright red as the soundproof bulletin boards that act as my background.
It really is. Look, color match that. Wow. Let's see. Does the taste live up to the promise and the price? It's a little bit sour. Not sure about that one. I can taste a little watermelon coming through, but yeah, maybe I shouldn't have bought a multi-pack of that one. Chris says you can taste the red.
Well, no one asked
for the show.
No one asked, but I'm drinking water.
Very good. So Chris says, I prepare for days, try to stop in it, or try to stay on top of it all, but always miss something. That's the way to do it. With all of the news, you're just building up, aren't you, to the weekly. And what else have we got? I really want a full ARAH world map made with all of the countries and locations mentioned in the series. It would be great as a double-page spread in a similar Cobra Island style.
This is a good idea, Chris, except that we don't know precisely where these countries are. I think we can triangulate some of them roughly because what they border has been mentioned, but a lot of times what they border are other Larry Hama fictional countries. So I don't know where in Europe Barovia is. I think we can only guess. Sort of like Latveria.
Yeah, I think there was a guide to some of the countries that was published in was it Sierra Muerte,
Yeah.
written by Chad
Chris Sims.
Bowers.
Oh, the other guy.
The other
Right.
guy. So, very good. I did catch up with both of the original Talking Joe hosts, Chief and Ben. Yesterday, we played bowling, and then we went to play video games. So that was a lot of fun. And the Chief got on his last ball of playing bowling, the last sets, he got 3 strikes in a row, which I believe is called a turkey, which was sensational, and it was captured on camera. So I might post that up at some point. And while go on.
I was hoping you were going to say that the 3 of you played with G.I. Joe action figures, or played a G.I. Joe arcade game, or perhaps an emulator on a computer hooked up to the internet. This seems like the logical second half of this sentence. I got together with the other two, with 2 other past Talking Joe hosts, and we played. And then you said bowling.
Yeah. We played bowling, and then we went to the arcade and played mostly Bomberman. And I did go to my real life comic book shop that I normally get stuff posted to me. And there we go. I do have in hand this latest issue, 326. So that was cool to go to the shop, place in space, visit in person, and pick up my issue in person and have it ready for this issue. So all of that preamble. Chris says, this sounds like a story from when you were 8 years old. It could have been. And then we went to laser tag.
What an amazing Mother's Day the 3 of you grown men celebrated by yourselves. And early.
Well, yes. So let's get into the stuff. We're talking about 326 today, but before we got too far into that, let's have a look at this. Oh, this is synchronous. Talking Force crossover. I appeared on the Full Force podcast not too long ago to catch up with Chris, and we talked about some of the characters that we from the comic books that we would like to be seen translated into 3 3/4 inch plastic form by Super 7 as part of their O-Ring Reaction Plus comic book series. So they announced their first one, which is a reprint of ARAH #1 with this blue Cobra Commander with the kind of all of the yellow trimming. And what else would we like to see? You can go over to that episode, not now, but you can at some point go over to that episode and find out what myself and Chris thought. Tim,
who designed? Is this a Brian Hickey logo that combines the Talking Joe logo with the Full Force logo? Because that's a fine looking combined
it's
logo.
A good job. I think Chris did a first pass on it, and then it was the other Brian Sauer, who would have
of course
done the logo, because he does all of the fancy graphics for Chris.
Oh, okay. Well, I was on the phone. I was on the phone with Brian Sauer yesterday, so 2 people can play that game. Well, no one invited me to the episode, and I would have said no anyway. But my vote is Dr. Biggles Jones, and is it issue 141?
Okay,
maybe it's 142.
Is that a Wild Man one, or is that slightly after Wild Man?
That's just after he leaves. This is part of the Transformers crossover. Doesn't she sort of help Megatron? Doesn't she have like a blue sort of bodysuit but a white lab coat?
Right,
And yes, that's my vote.
Cool. Chris confirming that he did the one that's on the screen at the moment, but Brian did a better version that he used on the episode. Very good. So moving into news, on the screen I have stuck up an image for the ARAH Compendium number 4. This paperback will be out on September the 22nd, and will basically be the same interior contents as the hardcover Kickstarter number 4. So wrapping up the Marvel era of G.I. Joe, and the contents covering last few issues of ARAH, including all of those hard to get or hard to find issues in the 150s, G.I. Joe and the Transformers 1 through to 4, G.I. Joe Order of Battle 1 to 4, and G.I. Joe Special number 1.
Can you go back? We should talk about this cover for a second.
Yeah.
Because this is maybe the only time we're going to talk about it. I really enjoy the selection of Joes on top and Cobras on the bottom for these 4 compendia covers. I imagine it's, part editor, part creative consultant Diana Davis, and maybe part Andy Kubert preferences. This one has Ninja Force Scarlett, version 4, Snake Eyes, not Ninja Force, the one with the red goggles. No pink swords here, as with his action figure. I think that's okay. Behind them is Chuckles with wearing his Hawaiian shirt, but the floral print is so big it makes me think of the early design, or the paint master, in the Dan Klingensmith's creating G.I. Joe. There's an image of a slightly earlier take on the pattern on Chuckles' torso, and the pink flowers are much bigger. And then there's Ninja Force Storm Shadow, who always looks great standing next to any Snake Eyes. And then I think that's Duke. I think this is
I think it's the Desert Storm inspired Duke that they had as a 12-inch figure.
So this is not the one who was in beige with red details. This is the one that's beige with brown. And then he's holding a weapon that's way too big. And I think that's actually one of the launching weapons that came with the final 3 years of Battle Corps action figures, in which case I think that's a really fun addition, because why not give him the outlandish toyetic toy accessory that was definitely not in the comic books. Then on the bottom, alluding to all the ninja stuff happening in this run, we've got regular Baroness, regular and awesome Night Creeper, and Slice and Dice. And I always get Slice and Dice mixed up. Who's got the purple mask? Is that... Well, the one with the purple mask, his eyes are bugged out, which I take to be a funny sort of Andy Kubert's little tick here. And then behind them are more, sort of faceless, masked, regular Cobra soldiers. And the color on the bottom is indoors and dark, or sort of outdoors on a starless night. So there's a lot of blue on the bottom third. There's a lot of sort of oranges and reds and yellows on the top 2/3. And it's really fun. I can't think of when Chuckles actually shows up in any of these issues. And maybe he technically doesn't show up, but Wild Bill's on the cover to is it volume 2? And that's fine with me. He's not in a lot of those issues. And at a certain point, it can't, because this is an ensemble. You can't do these collection covers over and over with Duke and Snake Eyes on every cover, because that gets repetitive.
Yeah, I think coming back to your earlier point, I think Slice is the one with the sword, so he's the slicey one.
Oh yeah.
Chris points out that he was also released as an orange version, so he remembers it as Orange Slice.
Very helpful.
And by process of elimination, Dice is purple.
This is. You know what? I'll try to remember that if I was playing Dungeons and Dragons, I'd want my dice to be purple.
So flicking ahead to the next release that we're going to be talking about is Silent Missions, Volume 2, which is the Cobra themed one. We'll have a silent month in April, but if you want to wait until the trade paperback, this volume will be out on October the 20th. And I think it includes...
sorry, you were about to say what it includes.
So it includes these silent missions, but I've also written down it includes Hush Job from yearbook number 3 in there.
Yeah, when we interviewed editor Alex Antone, I said it's so cool that Silent Missions Volume 1 had the 5 specials, but also the original Silent Interlude to sort of anchor it, and then you can put Snake Eyes on the cover with all the characters featured in those one-shots. And he said, yeah, we're going to put one of the other Silent issues in Silent Missions Volume 2. And then Mark and I immediately stopped paying attention to the interview and went deep into our brains and tried to come up with a list of the other 3 or 4 or 5 wordless Silent issues that might get packed in here. And this cover here does not include, say, the last names Hama and Wagner, as if it is going to include Hush Job from yearbook 3. So what I think we're really looking at here, Mark, is a slightly early design for Silent Missions Volume 2. It'll get updated when they've like finalized which other story it's going to include. But maybe they might not even, because this is primarily about the headline being the new Silent Missions month issues rather than necessarily the extra material in the back. So we shall see. But the cover is slightly less exciting than the previous Silent Missions Volume 1, which was kind of an ensemble cover featuring all of the main characters. This one will just be the Baroness, so reusing the main cover A to the Baroness issue, although there might be a variant, who knows. If I had my magic wand as an editor at Skybound and Andy Kubert's busy drawing Terminal for Skybound, I would ask Chris Mooneyham to draw a cover with the 5 Cobra characters featured in these one-shots, and maybe also Cobra Commander, because he's a supporting character in at least 2 of them. And that would be the new image for this cover.
Good. And then we've also got a view as to the next ARAH volume. So volume number 6 will be out on December the 8th with the title Volume 6. And it will feature Snake Eyes as per the cover to ARAH 326, which is the one that we are talking about today. So moving on to the issue at hand, that is brought to us by writer Larry Hama, artist Andrew Krahnke, rhymes with donkey, colorist Francesco Segala, with Sabrina del Grosso on flats, letterer Pat Brousseau, with an uncredited Andrew Krahnke, we'll talk about that in a minute, on SFX, editor Alex Antone, rhymes with phone, assistant editor Caitlin Chappell, publication design Jillian Crab, production design Richard Mercardo, and creative consultant Diana Davis. So let's move on to the things that they plonk on the front of these things. And they've got a word for that, don't they, Tim?
Covers.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero 326 cover A is drawn by, welcome back, Lee Weeks, and colored by Matt Hollingsworth. I don't know. I'm trying to think back to the Silent Missions specials last year. This might be Matt Hollingsworth's first work ever on G.I. Joe. He's one of the smartest, most talented colorists in comics. His stuff is not flashy. He's not a flashy colorist. He's just a very smart color artist who just really knows theory and mood. All right, so Lee Weeks, who drew an issue back in 1990 or 91, and who then did a cover run in 91, 92, and who did a couple pinups, trading cards for the Kickstarter a year ago, and was going to maybe draw an issue earlier in the last year, but that didn't work out, is now cover artist as we bid hopefully only temporary adieu to Andy Kubert. So here is Snake Eyes, full body, standing up on a wall, and there are bullet holes in it, and there's smoke behind him. While he's full body, we can't see quite all of his legs because we are looking up at him slightly, and he's looking a little bit down. He's holding a sword, and his Uzi, he's got a second sword. His sort of straps over his torso and his neck. It's like double belt. Are these the straps over the suspenders, I should say? This looks a little bit like he just parachuted in, because I feel like this is a little bit of an additive gear from Lee Weeks that doesn't correspond to, the 5 Snake Eyes versions from the Real American Hero action figure designs. There's no other indication of parachutes, and I'm not calling this a mistake. I'm calling this a choice, just a little bit of extra gear. But what's really the star here of this cover, besides we all love Snake Eyes, he looks like a badass, it's just him, is the pink. That this is nighttime or a little bit past dusk, and this whole cover is just sort of done in 2 colors. There's a sort of medium dark, sort of faded grayish blue for the sky, and then these 2 plumes of smoke have a little bit of pink mixed in them, which just ends up feeling like gray. But then there's this highlight all on Snake Eyes' right side, which is actually pink, and it feels like he's looking down at maybe something burning or a flare or a sunset. And this is one of those, if you describe this cover, someone might say like, oh yeah, there've been a lot of G.I. Joe covers like this, but there have not been, because of this pink, and I love it. And I was wondering, was Lee Weeks doing ink washes? And he draws digitally now, although I think for like commissions, of course, he draws on paper. And cover B, which is just black and white with no colors, shows us that, yes, some of the shadows on Snake Eyes on his right side, and then also that wall he's standing on, have some grays added. Cover C. Oh yeah,
I was going to say, great to have Lee Weeks back, and as Andy Kubert is taking a break, he's a great artist generally to take over, but also like Andy Kubert is sort of harkening back to a kind of golden era of Marvel G.I. Joe. If you've not listened to our interview with Alex and Antone, do go back and listen to it. It was very interesting, but
and short.
And short.
It's not a 2-hour episode, folks.
And he was hinting that hopefully Kubert will be back at some point. It's not necessarily a full departure.
One more thing that links Lee Weeks and Andy Kubert: they both went to the Joe Kubert School of Comic Art. And so did Chris Mooneyham, right? Who might be doing other covers for a different G.I. Joe for the reprints.
And one of my reactions to this cover was initially, it's a cool picture of Snake Eyes, but it's a little bit generic in it, and it's a little bit disappointing given that most of the covers to date have been linked back to what's happening on the interiors. That we're here, we're going sort of a slightly more sort of standard hero portrait. But thinking about it, it kind of does link back to what happens in the particular issue we are going to be looking at, because there is a moment where Snake Eyes is on top of a building, in a war-torn environment. So it's actually not, although he doesn't have an Uzi, aside from that, it's not too far off a moment that does appear in this particular issue.
I had the same thought. It's a pinup cover. It's Batman on a gargoyle, which I like, by the way, even though I phrase it as if it's always a bad thing. And I thought, maybe this cover was done sort of far enough advance, or sort of as an inventory cover, because like, when is Kubert leaving? When can we get Lee Weeks? Who's doing the cover for 326? Was this issue definitely going to be the issue that was being published after 325? Because as we've said over and over, this book takes a lot of hands and brains to keep it monthly, because it has so many moving parts. So I hope the next covers are more story related. And what was that comment that we just got, Mark? Can you put that back on screen. Chris said the Full Force says, in terms of the Snake Eyes inspiration for this cover, he looks like the sideshow version we got a while back that also saw a 4-inch version in 2011. Thank you, Chris. Cover C is a 1 in 10 variant, and it's painted by Steve Beach. It's part of this Joes of War theme featuring a character and a vehicle. In some cases, it was vehicles that didn't come with pilots or drivers, so it's a cool character that just happens to be driving or piloting them. In this case, it's the Wolverine tank. Did I say it wrong? Gears of Joe? What did I say?
I think you said Wars of Joe or Joes of War or something. Gears of Joe.
I keep wanting to say Gears of War, which is a video game that must be popular and I've never played. So here's CoverGirl on the Wolverine. It's firing 3 of its missiles. This is a really striking composition because we only see about 2/5 of the Wolverine, the way that it's cropped. CoverGirl is sort of hopping out of it, but she's got a pistol. Her hair is long and sort of windswept. As with all these covers, there's no background. There's just a single color. So all you're getting is character and cool vehicle. And the color here is pink. And all of the reflected light on the left side of the cover, on the right side of the tank, and CoverGirl's ammo belts and her collar and her hair and her head and her neck are also pink. So I don't know that pink has anything to do with the pink on cover A, but I'll take it. You know what? I haven't said this before. I'm starting to see, maybe it's this cover and CoverGirl's eyes and her face and her hair and just a little bit of Beach's use of, I don't know if it's black paint or just his darkest paints, but I'm starting to see a similarity, a good similarity with the painted work of Joe Jusko. And that might be coincidental. I don't know that Beach is doing anything on purpose like that, but fun cover. And then cover D was open to order. Your comic book store could order as many or as few as it wanted all month long because the Invincible show is coming back, and there's some like special Invincible reprints happening from Skybound. A bunch of Image comics this month have a variant where their character or characters on the cover are teaming up with or fighting Invincible heroes and or villains. And so Chris Mooneyham has drawn and colored, yes, cover D here, which has a bunch of Joes, including, who's the guy on the bottom left next to Roadblock? Or is that an Invincible guy? That's an Invincible guy. Mark's nodding his head. I've only read the first 3 years of Invincible, and that was more than 10 years ago. Chris Mooneyham
he looks very military, and but I can't remember his name from Invincible, but yeah, he's a sort of a blindfolded gunman. So he sort of looks like he could be a Joe, but he's not. So the guy on the far left and the 2 on the far right are Invincible supporting characters.
Yeah, so they are not like using their powers. They don't have capes. The one's a military guy in gear, and then 2 guys have like jackets and ties, and one has sunglasses or glasses. And then Mooneyham is doing one of his graphical elements, which we've started to see in some of his covers, like his new cover for the reprint of issue 21, where there's a big rectangular element, just a big rectangular stripe up and down the left side and on the bottom, where the Joes can be in front of it. And then behind all of this, not sharing the same physical space, just a giant sort of image behind them, is Invincible himself, sort of 2/3 full body, heads down to mid thighs. His fists are up, and there are a bunch of sort of speed lines coming from his head as if he's, I don't know, intense, thinking of flying, powering up or something. And all of the black ink on his layer is sort of knocked back with a little bit of sort of reddish, purplish. So he's definitely behind them. So it's a team up. But if you don't like your G.I. Joe characters to interact with superhero characters or other IPs, they're sort of like on different layers here. So you can have your cake and eat it too. But fun to see this drawing. And Man, that roadblock is big. And speaking of roadblock looking big, Andrew Krahnke inside this issue. Mark, are there any exclusive variants for this cover?
We do. There's 2 this month, I think.
Talk about a Snake Eyes cover we've seen before.
Now, I've not written down what that Snake Eyes is, so I've thrown myself completely. So I'll move on to the, and it might be that I'll look up in the background what that Snake Eyes actually is, but it might not actually be for this issue, but the Cedric Poulard variant, which is currently on the screen from Comic Traders, is of the Baroness in that famous is it Rosie the Riveter pose, sort of, sort of folded
flexing her bicep.
Flexing her bicep, thank you. Saying we can do it, available as a Virgin variant with a red background and a foil with a yellow background.
And this is such a perfect cover, considering that Baroness is definitely in this issue, has a lot to do, is on every page, has dialogue, yeah.
Is that another way of saying that I probably have got a jingle that I need to play?
Why are there so many covers of Baroness?
So that's given me a couple of seconds to play for and flip back to that Snake Eyes, because I have remembered what that is from. It's a G.I. Joe 49 variant. So we've got the Hama files being published simultaneously. So that should have gone in the news, but it's in the gallery section instead. That is from Ali Shimak. And that was published as a C2E2 variant. So
I don't remember. Is Snake Eyes is in issue 49, right? Because it's building up to the Battle of Springfield. This one's fair game, right? I mean, it's a big ensemble issue. He's probably in like 2 pages.
Maybe a page or 2. Yeah.
I would prefer a variant cover for issue 49 to have, Serpentor or some Cobras doing some making Serpentor things, but hey.
Okay. So let's get on into the issue at hand. G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 326. And what better way to do that than with a very spoiler-filled plot breakdown.
Plot breakdown.
The G.I. Joe team has boots on the ground in the Middle East. In Benzine, a team of Duke, Roadblock, Snake Eyes, Scarlett, and Mongoose have snatched a terrorist target and are heading back to base. The Joe's armoured transport is ambushed. Taking injuries, the team takes cover in a building, battling off waves of Black Scimitar fighters. They hold off long enough for a Tomahawk Medivac to arrive, but their detainee doesn't make it. A failed mission, perhaps, but all of the Joes make it out alive. Talking points, high level.
Hey, you know what? I didn't. My shirts match this cover, but not on purpose. This is These are just the shirts. Can you put me full screen for a second, just for 1 second, so people can enjoy? Yep. And with the light on my desk, I'm even kind of underlit,
a little pink,
not a little bit pink. Okay, that's all. I'm sorry to interrupt. Yes, Mark, let's start with your high-level reaction to this issue.
Well, I'll start note with a little point before I forget it, which was when I was reading the synopsis at the very start of this episode. I read back, as they described, no turning back. Duke, Roadblock, Scarlett, and Snake Eyes head deep into Trucial Abysmia on a rescue mission with enemies around every corner. And I was a little bit thrown by that because I thought, oh, did I remember the country incorrectly? But on the interior of the issue, we are in Benzine. which I think is the neighbouring country to Trucial Abysmia. So there may have been a little change there in between the writing of the issue and the writing of the synopsis. So that aside,
So your high level reaction was that the solicit was wrong.
no, that
and
that
it
wasn't
didn't
my
change the comic at all.
That wasn't my high level. That was just that was noting something before I forgot it, because I was thrown just reading that out earlier. So not important, but let's move on. High level, it's a one and done. It's a grounded military op. It's the second issue in a row where we've got that. And initially, when I started looking at this issue, I thought, hold on, is this a direct continuation of the issue that we had last month, 325, where we had the Joes in a sort of similar kind of APC type vehicle. So I was wondering if we were sort of staying in that same world. We are in a different geographical setting, but thematically, we're very grounded in a modern day military conflict. And then my second thought was it's a kind of semi-sequel to the last Krahnke issue, which was issue 3/114, which was a very grounded military operation set in a fictionalized Middle Eastern country. So these two issues that Krahnke have done so far feel very sympathetic and of a piece. And that was my high-level thought.
Yeah. Do you remember, Mark, in what fictional Middle Eastern country issue 314 took place?
I think it was the same one without double checking. I think we were in war-torn Benzine.
So, all right. So, Trucial Abysmia and Benzine are in the Middle East, and our previous issue 325 was in Barovia, right, which is in Europe.
Neighboring Darklonia.
Yes, and since all right, so the and that issue 325, we feel like was a proxy for the contemporary real life Russian invasion of Ukraine. And this issue feels a little more generalized to terror cells in the Middle East, which is fine. My big reaction to this was similar to yours. It was a delight to have a self-contained, straightforward military story. It was really nice to have Krahnke back. His stuff is cartoonier than Paul Pelletier and Mooneyham, and yet it still feels like it totally fits. And if I'm gonna compare Krahnke to anyone, he's got sort of the exaggeration of Michael Golden, but a little bit of the openness of Andrew Wildman, although there's more grit to his art. So in some ways, it's not at all like Andrew Wildman. Maybe actually Krahnke is sort of like halfway between Michael Golden and Chris Mooneyham. But in a good way, Krahnke is sort of going in his own direction. And yet, because it's Hama, characters that we know, and the same color artist, Segala, who's been doing this whole run, it doesn't feel like a weird break. It is in no way distracting. And then the other thing that struck me was that except for Mongoose, the three other characters are all, year one, year two Joe characters. And so I thought, oh, if you squinted and turned your head sideways, you could sort of pretend that this issue takes place in the earlier days of Joe's. They don't use tablets, smartphones, or drones. They don't mention satellites. There's just, rockets and shotguns. Snake Eyes uses a shotgun, which probably isn't a first. Every time I say something is a first, it turns out that I'm wrong.
It's an unusual weapon for Snake Eyes to be using.
Yeah, Snake Eyes does not use his sword in this issue, except on the cover, which is not.
Oh no, he does. He does.
All right, well, take that back. When does he use his sword?
As that guy is coming down into the the APC early on.
Oh, right. Okay.
Here, and then he.
All right. Page 3. Well, how about this? Out of 20 pages, Snake Eyes uses his sword once on page 3, and then uses climbing and guns like 4 or 5 times after that. When I was reading this issue, it did immediately remind me of 314. And I wonder if, I assume that Hama was already writing this story when Krahnke was assigned it, and that Hama didn't think, okay, that guy who drew issue 314, where they rescue that person, and there's some like going upstairs and like being in a building, and this sort of like already into an existing conflict, and it's a small team of Joes, and it's self-contained, and there's no blue ninjas or clones, except for Snake Eyes here. I think Hama just wrote this story. I think what we're seeing here is a nice coincidence that Krahnke drew it, and what Alex Antone said in a previous letters page, which is we're going to get away from Serpentor for a little bit, which I have to take as we're going to get back to some more straight military action, right? Because no Serpentor probably means no Mindbender. Like, this issue could have easily had 2 pages back in New Orleans, I forget, where Mindbender in his new costume is like, oh, I'm going to do another thing, right? I got to do something, even if he's not doing a Serpentor thing.
And it's sort of tying into that point about sort of Krahnke being back and the approach to this issue, it is a very much a one and done standalone. And for most of the ARAH issues that we've had in the Skybound era, they have been part of a continuing story, building on what has come before, and potentially, juggling, an A plot, a B plot, a C plot kind of thing, like, what's Mindbender doing back in Baton Rouge or whatever. So to some degree, this may have even, there may have been a thought process that this could have been an inventory issue. I don't know if that was ever that would have ever been an intent, but it could certainly have, meet that criteria of let's just get one that can stand on its own without linking back to any sort of wider plot. And the other thought is, like, sometimes I think these issues can be influenced by whatever Hama is seeing on the news, or reading or watching, and maybe the Black Hawk Down was on the telly and is like, yeah, it'd be cool to kind of do a bit more of a sort of a Joe's sort of in trouble, under fire in the Middle East type story, sort of tap into that kind of vibe, because I think that's some people's visceral reaction to this one. It's like G.I. Joe meets Black Hawk Down almost.
Joe Hawk Down. I had another thought about this issue, which is, now that we've had these 2 smaller, self-contained, more action issues, and we've heard that Skybound is a little bit ahead, I had this funny thought, like, well, that just means that you could do special missions, right? You could do, like, they're not going to, and I don't want them to, but you could, if Hama got so far ahead, or you got him on a double schedule, you could do Real American Hero into the late 320s and 330s, where there's some overlapping plot lines, and we've got, Blue Ninjas and Serpentor and Cobra Commander and Destro and all that stuff. And also a second series, call it G.I. Joe Special Missions, with stories like this. I don't want them to, because I think that would be too much, and it would sort of mess up a good thing. And it is more fun right now to have a surprising special month like Silent Missions or Silent Missions 2. But for a second I thought, okay, well, they've established that they can do a lot of Hama stories, and they've established that they can do a lot of G.I. Joe stories, and they can juggle the pipeline of, multiple comics. I mean, editorially, in terms of like lettering and coloring. And so for a second I thought, and at the same time I thought, wait, when are they going to do special missions for the Hama files? And that will very subtly just feel a little different, because some of the issues they've done so far as Hama Files reprints are not self-contained. 2 is, 49 certainly isn't, 26 isn't, I guess 152 is. But as soon as you do a cover recreation and it says G.I. Joe Special Missions, the G.I. Joe logo isn't as big, and it's going to look different on shelves. So just this last week, I've just been thinking of Special Missions as an asset, a potential asset for Skybound. And
to that point as well, I mean, this sort of story, and I think this is your thought process, but to kind of really, put a pin in it, this sort of story, if it was being published in the 80s, would have been much more likely to have been in the pages of a Special Missions title. It's that self-contained, more military, less,
no Cobra.
No Cobra or minimal Cobra, and this feels kind of very much in that space of the type of issue that would have appeared as a special missions issue rather than ongoing.
Greg Augustin in the comments says, after the setup of Cobra Forces in 323, it's interesting to have separate space, drone, and now extraction missions. I also thought inventory story. And again, I'm going to read into this, Greg. We are not thinking of inventory as a bad thing. Inventory stories, I think if you look at Marvel in the 80s, can sometimes have a negative connotation because the regular team is behind schedule and then the inventory issue is by other people and it's lesser. And what's happening here is editorial at Skybound is having Hama write more scripts and then getting other artists. And if we've got 3 rotating regular artists on G.I. Joe right now, and they're all great, and one of them does what's effectively an inventory issue, it gets slotted in, the book stays on schedule, and like this month I wasn't like, I gotta get back to Mindbender. It's like, no, let's go see Snake Eyes use the shotgun. So when I say, perhaps when Greg also says, this feels like an inventory issue, another way of saying it is, it just feels like a change of pace issue. And that's a good thing.
And also interesting observation, when the last 3 issues, we've had basically 3 different artists, which is relatively unusual as well, that we had Pelletier, Mooneyham, and now Krahnke as the 3 issues in a row. And to that, the point of having such an interesting issue 323 with that setup of all of the Cobra forces and all of those returning Cobras like Scrap Iron and Overkill and etc. When we got to 324, I sort of did comment that I was a little bit disappointed that we kind of didn't follow up on that specific point of seeing what those reintroduced Cobra forces might do next. And we've had 3 issues not returning to that point. So when we do get back to that, it will be exciting to see those Cobras. But I think there's possibly a little bit of momentum that may have been lost by not continuing on that storyline to some degree.
This is one of those cases where I feel. This is one of those cases where I feel like this is the Larry Hama G.I. Joe, Chris Claremont Uncanny X-Men comparison, where for 15 plus years, Claremont had this big and only getting bigger cast, and it was a team book. And like Uncanny X-Men in the 80s, sometimes like 4 issues would go by and Wolverine would not show up. And then he'd show up and he'd be really important, or he'd show up and the issue was all his. And this is before he got his own series. I'm not talking about the miniseries. And so the story sort of progressed slowly because Claremont only had 12 or 13 chunks every year to progress the story, which feels very different from, X-Men right now, where there are many X-Men books. And, I remember in 7th grade, my buddy Nick and I, for months, we would say to each other, what's happened with the people on the freighter? Because is it 98? Is 98 where Cobra Commander? Does he bury the freighter? Does he seal the freighter? Does he sinks the freighter? I can't remember. But there's like a Joe and a Cobra and some kids in there, and we just like 7 months go by, and we don't know what happens to them. And I think Hama both didn't know he was going to figure it out when he wanted to. And at a certain point, he thought, oh, I should get back to some of those characters. And this issue and sort of the rhythm of G.I. Joe continues to be, whether it's a single monthly or even if it had special missions, to your point, where we had some momentum with a bunch of Cobra characters coming back, and now several issues where we don't check in with them. And that's weird and a bummer, but also cool when we do soon. That just feels like G.I. Joe always was. Hama is, as he says, making it up as it goes along, but there's so many characters. You are always going to drop someone or some things and not get back to it for a while. And, I'm always sort of tickled when in the letters page, someone writes in and they rattle off, so Eric Parent somewhere in Kentucky in the letters page says, my favorite Joes include Shipwreck, Recondo, and Spirit. Are we going to see them anytime soon? And sometimes the answer is like, maybe. And sometimes it's up to Larry. And sometimes it's like, well, by the time you've read this, one of those guys just showed up. And I sort of chuckle because there are just too many Joes, and 10 to 70% of the readership is always going to be disappointed including me, when it's not even favorite characters. It's just like, how about Lightfoot? I just want to see Lightfoot because that's a cool costume. And this is where you say like, no, we did just see him recently. Actually,
well, yeah, we did just see him recently,
right?
And when we're looking at the Energon universe, I've sort of commented on that kind of difference in pacing of the issues and how quickly things are followed up. Like used to Hama issues that he'll introduce something and then it may take many months, many years, maybe never in terms of when it gets followed up next. And then in the Energon universe, I'll be, oh, that's an interesting point. A little bit of a nugget. I wonder when that will get followed up on. And inevitably, it's like, oh, the next issue. That's an interesting way of approaching these things.
In fact, maybe the only comparison where the Energon universe is doing kind of a Hama thing is how long it's taking to get back to Storm Shadow or Snow Job or Scarlett, who were introduced, 2 years ago and are going to come back in issue 21 somehow. Chris McLeod, who I believe has cosplayed as Lightfoot and very successfully, is also a Lightfoot fan, says the comments. Okay,
the only Lightfoot fan, perhaps.
No, there are two of us.
Okay.
And folks, I had Lightfoot and Night Force Lightfoot.
Shall I go straight into some real super detail here? Yeah. I mentioned earlier on that that Krahnke had was uncredited as the letterer or for the SFX because he is doing a lot of heavy lifting here on SFX and sort of not getting the credit for it, but also probably not the pay for it either. So I've got a jingle for it. Let's play that jingle.
Let's talk about SFX, baby. Let's talk about pew and scream. Let's talk about shooting gun things and the sound effects. We'll see. Let's talk about SFX. Let's talk about SFX.
Okay, so Marcus just put on screen a dazzling photograph, probably taken by Andrew Krahnke himself, of two what look like 11 by 17 artboards, plus a couple pens and a ruler, and it's all hand lettered sound effects. Ka-choom, blam, 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 ba-da, 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 braka, braka, poom, pang, pang, ping, kamash, choom, crack, spack. They're different sizes, where something repeats like blam, 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 blam. He's done them all individually. It's not a copy and paste in Photoshop. And some of them are sort of bend or pinch. So there's a real spatial shape to them. And okay, now Mark has put a close-up photo of Ka-choom, and I don't know if these are for sale, but I kind of want to buy them. And that shouldn't be too surprising, because I've spent some time on Todd Klein's website, and he's got some neat prints where he's just done a whole bunch of lettering, or like sort of done an essay about type or lettering with some design and art around it. Todd Klein, one of the best letterers in comics. So Mark, what you're saying is that artist of this issue, Andrew Krahnke, lettered all of these sound effects in black ink, and then scanned them, and then put them into his art after he had scanned his art in Photoshop, and inverted them so that they were white, not black, or I guess left them as a layer for the colorist to handle. And in some cases, he slightly whited them out so they could appear sort of behind like a bullet, or if they're at the edge of a panel, they could get a little bit cut off. Wonderful.
Yeah, and unusual. So yeah, it looks like he's done this on a separate artboard, and as you say, I think has digitally taken the hand lettered SFX and added it to his scanned art for submission into the colorist and letterer for the next step. Yeah, it looks like he was having a lot of fun with playing with some hand lettered SFX, and something that is a nice old school feel for the ARAH, and some good inventive and different sound effects used across the patch. A lot of firing, a lot of explosions across the whole issue, as seen by the variety of SFX that Krahnke has created to be used in the issue.
Folks, if you'd like to hear G.I. Joe people talk about lettering, please go to where you get your Talking Joe podcast episodes, whether you listen or watch, and find the interview that I did with Larry Hama and Ron Wagner at Assembly Required 2024. I did the panel with them, and it was like a 45 or 50 minute panel, and I'm not exaggerating. The first 12 minutes we talked about lettering, and it was fascinating. Okay, Mark, can you go back to that page that you just put on screen, which was page 2? Something that I was curious about in this issue is, who is that guy on the top? Who is up? Who's sticking out halfway of this? It's an APC, right? It's an armored personnel carrier. I don't know, or generically. We can see this same person on the first panel of page 1, but we see them really small the 2 times that we see them, top of page 1 and top of page 2. And then on the top of page 3, next to the word balloon, they got Ali. He's slumped over, and someone else is getting shot. And so a question that I had, and I will call this a bit of a plot hole, is I feel like there's one caption or dialogue balloon missing, where Duke or Roadblock says something like, glad we're getting escorted by the Benjine resistance force through enemy territory. Or, we got, what's the word? We got applied with, stuck to, I forget the military word. We got hooked up with by, superior officers, the Benjine, like special forces. Because someone fires a rocket, right? And it blows up the front of this armored vehicle, and all the Joes get injured, plus they're the guy that they grabbed.
I think as you say, we've got kind of unnamed gunner on the top, and probably on page 2, the other guy
is the
page 3 is the driver.
Okay.
And definitely not named, but also I guess confusingly that on page 1, that speech bubble does link back to the person up top talking, That was a textbook extraction. We should have the Joe team back at the forward base in time for steaks and beers. Yeah, I think having that as a speech bubble sort of makes you maybe sort of adds to the confusion of who's that guy talking. But
I think you're seeing an error. I think the very first word balloon of this whole issue is either pointing to the wrong guy, the generic like Benzine resistance fighter special ops guy who's not a G.I. Joe, or that tail needs to have a different treatment where it like disappears into the vehicle the same way that the other word balloon does, because I think it's Duke who's saying it.
That was my initial thought, but reading it a few times, it's like we should have the Joe team, which maybe implies that he's not part of the Joe team.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I think he's a Trucial Abysmian, but yeah, it's not called out, is it?
Okay.
I think these.
Thank you. I take that back. It's not a mistake in the lettering, that first word balloon. I think it's a scripting and visual storytelling overlook where we need a close-up of that first person who is speaking on the first panel of the first page so that we know more definitively that he's not one of our guys. I mean, he's a good guy, but he's not a Joe because he's so small. And yeah. So you talked about lettering. I wanted to talk about coloring. Don't put it up just yet, but could you get that slide that I sent you ready? On the first page, so I'm so used to the excellence of the coloring in this series that every month I don't even worry about it. It's just going to look great. And then there are like little flourishes where like someone's in a submarine or an APC and everything's just all red, or, we switch scenes from outside to inside and inside is kind of all blue and it's great. And I'm looking at the actual sort of textures of the color. I don't mean like the dots that make it look like old paper or printing. I mean the actual like brush strokes that show highlight from midtone from shadow on panel 2. The second panel of the entire comic where we see the 4 Joes and their target in the vehicle and they're all red. And I'm looking at how the like highlights and midtones on their target, who's got a bag over his head, and his shoulders and his arms, and it looks a little bit like a certain brush in Photoshop, like a wedge-tipped brush was used. And I thought that's a little bit more active than I'm used to in Francesco Segala's finishes. And then can you go to Can you go to 2 pages later? It happened again where Snake Eyes uses that is definitely a sword. Thank you, Mark. To stab one of the bad guys. And the bad guy is not red. It's not a red ninja. He's just been knocked out in red for a subjective emotional effect. And he's sort of underlit where as if like Snake Eyes himself or the sword is like a light source, where sort of the bottom of his arm is a lighter red than the top of his arm and the top of his leg. And I thought, what this reminds me of? Can you put that slide up, Mark? Will Spertasio came back to Stormwatch, not the Stormwatch that launched like a year and a half after Image started. Years later, Portasio did another Stormwatch book, and he stayed on it for, 6 or 9 issues. This was Stormwatch Team Achilles, and he penciled and colored the first issue. And Mark has put up on screen like a blow up of part of a panel from the first page, and every page was like this. And Portasio did the covers as well, drew them, I think inked by Scott Williams, and colored them. And he's doing like a little bit more active texture in his sort of highlights. And so I put this on screen as a comparison with that Snake Eyes stabbing bad guy panel, and then a later panel from G.I. Joe 325 where Mongoose is smashing in the window, and Mongoose and Roadblock it's not just the color, the like very contrasty color that is their highlight. It's also the actual like brush stroke shapes of the color on them, both for their highlights and for their on the left side and for the sort of shadows on the right side. And I don't think Francesco Segala was looking at this one issue of Stormwatch that Portasio colored. I think this is a coincidence, and I don't know that either of them invented this treatment. I'll just say the first time I ever noticed like color being so sculptural in an issue of a comic book by the penciler was that issue of Stormwatch. And hey, don't forget, folks, Michael Golden penciled and colored the first issue of the Nom, but then he never colored it again, just covers. So I think this is a coincidence, but a wonderful coincidence. And it's just hey, this reminds me of a thing I saw once. But it did feel like in this issue of G.I. Joe that Francesco Segala was using his stylus. I'm holding up my stylus for my tablets a little differently in how he did the colors this issue. Palette feels just about the same, but the highlights felt a little different and the textures felt more active. And sorry, this was what I was getting to. It feels like it's because of how Andrew Krahnke inks himself, that it's sort of a style match, that you would not see these shapes, these like slightly more jagged, like, look at Roadblock's arm by his glove there, all the way on the right side, where he's saying, "Don't mind if I do." Segala would not color Paul Pelletier that way, right? It's softer. His edges are a little softer. So that's my thought about the colors. Colors are great and a little different.
Yeah, they are a little different, and I wonder sort of looking at some of the detail here in the color, is that potentially an answer could be that Krahnke did a tonal overlay on himself.
Oh.
So maybe I'll see if I can find out the answer to that. But it may be that there was some of these lines are coming from Krahnke rather than necessarily Segala. Just like he's trying to take the letterer's job, he's also trying to take the colorist job.
But
G.I. Joe, they need to unionize the ARAH team. So these divided. Let's see. I wonder. Yeah, but it does look different. I wonder if there is an explanation along those lines.
We do have that kind of thing happening on the cover, where Lee Weeks didn't just ink it with black; he did some some shading to not, sort of direct the colorist. Another thing about this issue, Snake Eyes talks, and now that it's been happening for has it been 2 years? When does it does he talk at the end
since
of 290
300?
Did he not talk when he comes out of the tank in 297 or 298 or 299?
I think he comes out the tank last page of issue 299, if I remember correctly, and then I think he says one line in issue 300, and then most of the times we've seen him since, he said something, and I've got a jingle for that.
Snake Eyes talking, Snake Eyes talking about things he wants to say.
So Snake Eyes talking. He says
what I wanted to say was, I will never get used to this. I keep thinking, is that a mistake? Oh, that feels wrong. Oh, is he saying too much? Oh, he's a badass. I don't know how I feel about this. And then I still want, and we missed this 2 years ago, I still want a scene where at least one Joe reacts to him more that he came back from the dead and that he now is talking. Hama doesn't often write that kind of stuff. And I do think that's a missed opportunity, because don't forget, they spent an entire issue just paying their respects when he died. And I don't need a whole issue where they're like, let's have a party and play charades, and then Snake Eyes can guess because he can talk now, right? I just want half a page where Stalker and Snake Eyes are like, it's good to have you back. It's good to hear your voice for the first time in so long, buddy. Or Scarlett, puts her hand on his cheek, and I'll write the scene.
Yeah, and from the solicits for 328, that has got the title "The Secret of Snake Eyes Revealed?" ? As Dawn infiltrates the Terradrome, she learns a shocking secret about Snake Eyes from their time in Springfield, one that could doom their future. And I think that, as you say, Snake Eyes talking is still a bit jarring, and they haven't really explored his return and him having his voice back. The fact that he's got in a cloned body, the fact that where these memories from, the fact that Dr. Mindbender originally was bringing him back as to be an evil clone of Snake Eyes, and putting in the programming to do that. Could there be something there? I don't know to what degree, if ever, it will be filled up on, but there's definitely something there. And also in terms of slotting this in as a classic G.I. Joe tale that you could give to anyone and not be confused, and it could be part of the 80s run. The main thing that stops that from being the case is the fact
Mongoose.
that you've got Mongoose, but also Snake Eyes talking, and you do kind of need to understand that. And
I was actually thinking of mailing this issue to my brother. My brother is a lapsed G.I. Joe fan, and I was mailing him the entire IDW run, both the like Chuck Dixon verse, and also Real American Hero when it started up at 156. And I think he tapped out. It was really slow. I think he tapped out at, I don't know, 250. And I thought, because I just mailed him the Center Holds issue one, because he's let's hope it's only a decade temporarily out of comics. And I thought I should just mail him this issue of G.I. Joe. Like, oh well, Snake Eyes talks. I'd have to explain that. And even if I explained it, it might throw him off. And is this the issue to get him back in? Because it's a good issue, but he might not like the Snake Eyes talks.
and yeah, so you've got to kind of give that to lapsed readers or readers who have not been paying as much attention or missed a few issues. Kind of got to give them that context to explain what on earth is going on with Snake Eyes. So it makes things a little bit more convoluted.
Let me also say one more thing. When the first slide you put up for this episode was the like Skybound promo for this issue, where it's got the cover and then the little blurb, the little paragraph, and it starts with no turning back. The Joes are behind enemy lines and they got to get out. There it is. No turning back. And then what was the blurb? What was the sort of headline you just recited for, is it 328? Like the secret of Snake Eyes?
It was the secret of Snake Eyes. The secret of Snake Eyes revealed.
Okay. So Hama has said that he was never interested in writing little teasers for the next issue for the people who did the catalogs at Marvel, because by the time he got around to writing the issue, it might be a very different issue. And so he just preferred not to. And we have seen a couple times where and you sort of even put it into your opening for a lot of our episodes, like, is that what happened? Or how do we feel about how it turned out? And certainly in a general sense, this issue feels like there's no turning back, but it doesn't literally feel like that. Or they don't sort of demonstrate it. I mean, like, yes, they can't. You know what I mean?
Their vehicle is physically incapable of turning back.
what I mean is Hama didn't write those 3 words, no turning back. And I don't think Hama wrote The Secret of Snake Eyes Revealed. I think that's an editor, a salesperson, a marketer at Skybound. And that's their job, and that's great. And I do want like short descriptions and hooks for catalogs. So stores want to order them and people want to read them. But I am aware with G.I. Joe, in a way that I'm not with any other book, that it's not like a mistake, although maybe the Trucial Abysmia thing here in this one really was. It's that like the timeline of Hama writing a story, it getting drawn, it getting finished written, and the editor and the salespeople placing it in catalogs doesn't always work out.
And I think Benzene and Trucial Abysmia are neighbors, and it's like Trucial Abysmia is like the Saudi Arabia, Benzene is more like the Iraq or something like that. So they're going in from an allied country with a base into kind of more of a DMZ type war zone, doing the snatch and coming back. So they're I think the Trucial Abysmia isn't necessarily far off, but that's kind of where they're operating from and trying to get back, rather than where they are having this actual firefight.
Okay, so we haven't talked about
Snake Eyes talking. So he says,
oh, sorry.
He says, I'm fine Got it, as he grabs a grenade. I'm on it, providing cover out of a window. Cover me. Eat this. So a lot of that dialogue is very sort of short, very functional, just giving kind of an update to his colleagues, let's say, teammates.
But then on the last page, he does one of Shakespeare's entire sonnets for Scarlett, which is a shock. And then there's no letters page. He just continues in text. Sorry, go ahead.
So a lot of it is very functional. Eat this sort of stood out to me as the kind of the one that was different about compared to all of the other sort of bits of dialogue. In terms of it's him talking to the enemy, and it's less of a necessary kind of piece of dialogue in terms of describing what he's doing, so that his teammates can kind of follow and sort of be reassured that he's taking care of the enemies outside or grabbing a grenade or whatever else. It's more sort of reveling in the violence as he sort of blasts one of these insurgents off from the roof. I don't know if you had any particular thoughts on that observation.
That one stuck out at me. It's attitude, which
attitude.
Snake Eyes has displayed sometimes, but it always feels tempered because each reader is projecting sort of exactly what he's doing, sort of how they feel, because he doesn't say it, whether he's running it towards some ninjas with a sword or rescuing Scarlett. He's always a little unknowable. And when he says something like this, we know that sort of he's a badass, and he kind of knows he's a badass, and he might be telling us, the reader. So not my favorite bit of dialogue in this issue, but we're moving into some new territory, and I will trust Hama, who knows Snake Eyes really well. I have never written Snake Eyes. Hama's written a lot of him. And also maybe an upcoming story is going to address not exactly this, but some general stuff about who, this new Snake Eyes is. And
this could be
growing into
a gentle peppering of that. Maybe something is a little bit off with Snake Eyes potentially. Right. Maybe
he's a bad guy who's full of attitude, and he's gonna betray because he's got a secret.
But this element also, this particularly while I'm on that page, it sort of is a bit of a call back to an earlier issue when Snake Eyes was doing a sort of like a training in a shooting range and sort of trying out new bits of kit for his loadout. And as part of that kit loadout, he had a sawed-off M79, which is the thing on screen that he's pethunking as he's sort of reloading or taking the shell out. And that appears to be what he is using here to feed what that insurgent is eating.
I wanted to talk about this issue. Every Joe gets injured, which is, I think, I'm sure it happened in one issue or one special missions that I can't remember. But I want to say, if not new, novel, right? There are issues where a Joe gets injured. Sometimes there's issues where two Joes get injured, but the number of issues where 100% of the Joes on a mission get injured is very small. And so that felt different, and the stakes then felt different. And this is right after their driver and their gunner also get killed, although again, a little unclear on that. I'm setting you up so you can play your jingle because there's a sucking chest wound. But before you do that, I just want to point out that I appreciate how sort of relatively often in the 326 issue history of G.I. Joe, Joes do get injured. And, have we checked back in with CoverGirl, whose voice was damaged? She must have shown up in Snake Hunt, but maybe she spoke, maybe she didn't, maybe she's in the background. But the way that I appreciate in this over a couple of pages here, each Joe is injured differently and each reacts to it differently, right? Snake Eyes is imperturbable, and Roadblock is initially...
It shows him visibly wounded to the side, and he says, "I'm fine."
Right. And that's the badass that we want, not the attitude badass. So I like that. I still don't love that he's talking, but it's fine. And then Roadblock is imperturbable, but it catches up with him, and I thought that was a really nice note that it's a is it a wordless panel where he finally falls? Okay, he says "ong," and Scarlett is taking care of them, right? And Mongoose is helping, and a lot of attention. There were, there must have been like 10, 12 panels where they are injured or they're dealing with their injuries or they're sort of getting past their injuries. And I appreciated that even though they get through the mission and they take out all the bad guys and they get out of there alive and the mission's sort of a success and sort of not, by percentage, a lot of time is spent in this issue on them being injured. And it feels, I didn't think anyone was going to die. I didn't think anyone was going to get left behind, but it felt a little different in the stakes. And then I guess this is Arg, says Duke. Scarlett says, the coagulant hurts like hell, Duke. Still better than exsanguinating, right? And Mongoose says, oh wait, I'm on the wrong page. When does someone say
exsanguating? Another great Hama word to be using there as well.
There we go. Sorry, I was a whole 2 pages off. He's going into shock, says Scarlett of their target. Mongoose is tearing something open with his teeth. It's got a Red Cross symbol on it. Sucking chest wound. I can seal it off with a plastic dressing wrapper. But if his lungs fill with blood, so do you want to play the jingle?
Stop. Have a time.
Oh, just the short version. Okay.
It's the short version because otherwise I get a copyright strike.
Okay.
But yeah, the long version of that jingle talks about sucking chest wounds, which is definitely a phrase and a device that Hama calls back to frequently. There's a thread devoted to it on the Talking Joe Facebook group, which gets updated each time it gets used. And I believe the last time it was used was in issue 310, as Baroness was shot and Zartan wants to help out with some cellophane or plastic to air seal the sucking chest wound.
Okay, so I have a little, I don't know if it's not a criticism, sort of I have a note. I have a point. All right, so this guy that they've grabbed, his name is Bakir. They've grabbed. Does he have a first name?
Fares Bakir, Chief Political Officer of the Black Scimitar Terrorist Front.
Okay, Mark, have we ever met the Black Scimitar in G.I. Joe?
I don't believe so. I flicked back to this previous issue 314, and they had a similar name, which I have already forgotten, which was Black something else, but not Black Scimitar.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for checking.
Black Kaifa, I think it says.
Okay. All right. So, okay. So I saw that and I thought, I think these are new. This is a new group that we haven't met before. And maybe it's like Al-Kalbra where they, not a lot will be done with them, or maybe like Revanche and the Blue Ninjas, a lot will be done with them. Probably the former, not the latter. But good device for the issue. I think I'm going to call this an error detected because on page 1, 2, 3, 4, after they're all injured, Scarlett says, Mongoose, how's our detainee? And Mongoose says, caught one in the chest, bleeding profusely and pink froth on his lips. And in that same panel, we see Bakir just in front of Mongoose and his hands are tied and he's got a cloth over his head. And I feel like that specific dialogue is a little too specific for not showing Mongoose like putting the bag back over Bakir's head, or
right.
It just not off completely. And I'm going to call this a small mistake. I'm going to call this a little mismatch between writing and art. Maybe Hama really wanted something to be specific and Krahnke hadn't drawn it. I'm not going to make my formal request that this panel gets redrawn for the digital versions and the collection. Like, it's a bummer, but it's fine. It's not a big deal. But I was sort of wondering what Bakir looks like. And then when we finally see him a couple pages later, the mask is off and he has an eye patch and a beret. And I might be falling into stereotypes, but I feel like this costume and his like lack of facial hair, he looks to me like a European villain. I thought for a second, like, oh wait, are we in Barovia? Like, oh no, we're in Benjine and Trucial Abysmia. There's a lot of, we don't know anything about Black Scimitar. But just as a visual, I thought two things. One, okay, this isn't what I was expecting, and I might be wrong here, but it feels a little off. And two, I kind of wanted some like froth around his mouth just for continuity. And, you know, maybe they did it and it's like, that's too much. You got to take it out. And you don't have to fix that. It's fine, everyone. But since we hadn't seen him earlier, seeing him here, I sort of thought like, oh, is that the guy? I was imagining a different, like, you know, head and costume under that bag. So it's just a little thing.
Yeah, I hadn't quite sort of put it together, but when we saw him first unmasked, it sort of felt a bit like, oh, that's a bit weird, and I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was that felt off slightly weird about it. But I think you kind of put your finger on it there that he doesn't, like, one, we didn't see him earlier on. And two, he doesn't necessarily look particularly Middle Eastern, but yeah, I've just stuck on the screen now a close up of that particular page where we see him with a bag over his head and Mongoose describing his lips, which doesn't quite marry. Just get rid of that sentence and you'd be okay, I think.
I'll go a step further since Mark, you're in the UK. Does his actual design look like someone from Action Force or the Red Shadows? He kind of looks like finish the sentence for me here. Who's the bad guy in the British take on G.I. Joe before there's a Cobra who's got an eye patch and that kind of beret, even if the colors don't work?
I think you're thinking of Black Major.
Yeah.
But I think although he does have two eyes and he wears a sort of more of a peaked cap. There's a character called Sergeant Major, which is in the Iron Grenadiers, who I believe does have a beret and an eye patch. Okay.
I'm not saying with this last observation that Hama or Krahnke is like trying to make it some Action Force character or Iron Grenadier. That this one just feels like a funny coincidence. But again, looks and feels looks very European. And you know, like if on the first page he can have a bag over his head and one of them has a tablet and it's got his image, you know, and it's like, this is him. We definitely got him. Like I've positively ID'd him or something like that. Or they're putting the bag on his head at the beginning, or they take it off so we can see pink froth. And I don't want to see pink froth because I want the bad guy to suffer, or because I like gore. I want it for continuity.
Cool.
Okay, Mark.
Okay. Barking Fridge says Faris Bakir is an Egyptian actor's name. There we go.
Oh, okay.
So maybe there's a callback to something.
Hopefully an obscure one. And now Googling one or the other.
Litigious, yeah.
Right. Well, you know, maybe.
Oh, here we go. Here's the proper reference. Sigma 6 Lieutenant Stone is the one with eye patch and beret. The Sergeant Major from Destro's team does have a beret, but not an eye patch.
Okay. Okay, Mark, we haven't talked sort of specifically about the choreography of this issue in plot and in art. And I think we danced around it like, this issue is self-contained. There's just guns and rockets. But I thought it was, this issue is very small. It's not just self-contained. It doesn't take place over a lot of space. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's claustrophobic because they're definitely moving. But I do feel this issue is a romp. In terms of tone, I was 95% sure all the Joes were going to get out of there. No one's going to die. No one's going to get left behind. And I wasn't sure about if the mission would work out. And I do love the very small Larry Hama twist on the final page with Duke's dialogue, which calls back to the first page, which we can talk about at the very end of the episode, sort of thematically. But I wanted to say that it was fun to see some Joes disembark from a vehicle, run in a little bit of a worry. There is some confidence and cockiness in who's laying down cover fire, and Snake Eyes, running into the fray and climbing up the pipe. But this reminds me of, actually. This is not a Larry Hama thing at all. This reminds me of like Dave Sim and Gerhard making models of some of the buildings in, I think it's Melmoth. I can't remember, the Cerebus story, which just like takes place in like two buildings. Maybe it was the story before Melmoth, but like making a little paper model so that they can keep track of sort of where in the room and where on which floor, like Jaka is or Cerebus is or whatever. I don't think Hama made a model. It is possible he drew himself a little diagram on a piece of paper, and that might show up on Facebook in 2 weeks. But it's also pretty straightforward, right? They're in the street, they go into this building, there's a room, they go up the stairs. But some of it is Segala's color, keeping sort of spaces different from each other. Most of it is Krahnke's really clear visual storytelling that, like, this page you have on screen right now, top panel, we're on the stairs looking down. Next panel, we're on the ground looking up the stairs, right? We see Duke and Roadblock in the first one. We see them in the second one, reverse angle. It's not brilliant. Krahnke didn't invent this. It's just very clear. And anytime you read a fight in comics, whether it's punching, kicking, blasting, swords, or weapons, right? If it's underwater or in space, I guess you get a pass. But if it's in any kind of space, hallway, dungeon, mountain, building, headquarters, if you are a little bit lost or a lot lost, or if at the end of the story you're like, I don't know why, but I'm a little unsatisfied. Or if you find yourself kind of like going through it too fast, it might be because the artist didn't draw the backgrounds and didn't place their camera as well as Andrew Krahnke did here.
And also sort of it calls back to some of the approach of G.I. Joe issue number 21, the original silent interlude, that there's very specific design elements to the key bits, sort of indicating a shorthand as to where people are geographically, or in this case, in the room. You've got specific wooden doors which are open inwards into the room. So if the doors are facing into you, you're inside. If they're away, you're outside, and the colouring will then help with that. There's a sort of a very specific shape of a window which the Joes then shoot out of, and it's that same specific shape that was originally established as they're outside of the building.
Go back a page. There's sorry. Go forward 2 pages. Go forward 2 pages. That one, Scarlett in the first panel and the second panel. I mean, that's just a tiny bit of continuity, but that doorway, that's a specific doorway. It's got a round top.
Absolutely. So it's very, very clear, sort of establishing through both the art, the color, and also the dialogue as to where they are, what they're doing, what the threat is, what they're going to do next, how they're interacting across the team. So super sort of clear, clarity around what's going on, where everything is. You don't really feel at all sort of turned around throughout the course of this issue, which would be
all that said.
At least I don't.
All that said, can you go to page 13? It's the one where Scarlett kicks the grenade. Grenade comes down the stairs, and then she kicks it into that doorway. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I like this page, but I think Andrew Krahnke didn't do himself any favor when it's really clear which is panel 1 and 2. It's not clear which is panel 3. Do you go 1, 2, 3 left to right? Do you go from her kicking to blam, blam, blam with Roadblock's machine gun sort of entering the space of that top rectangle? Or do you go 1, 2, and then down? Because a moment after she kicks the grenade, it blows up behind her. And I'm thinking of this kind of thing because there's a page in the Center Holds, I think it's issue 3, where folks, this is this comic book that I've been editing, this miniseries coming out from Boom, and that's all I'll say about it. But there's a page in issue 3 where I was looking at the lettering, was like doing a proofread recently, and Mark Bright, who drew it, who was great, does something kind of like this, where there's like a big panel, and it's like, oh, do I go one more to the right or do I go down? And there wasn't a lot of space to have the lettering like make it absolutely sure, because the lettering might cover up something important. It's like, okay, so I said to Janice Chang, the letterer, can you move this board balloon here and this other one here? And she's like, yeah. And it's like, all right, we made it 50% better, but I think half the readers are still going to read this one page in my comic a little bit out of order. So I see this page and I'm like, darn. Also, I appreciate Krahnke trying something here, because Roadblock shooting upward with such a long gun does lend itself to a vertical. Oh, wait. Oh, that's not a separate panel. That's just the ceiling is colored all black, right? Okay. Okay. So that entire orange shape on the top right and the black below it that has Blam in front of it, that's the ceiling, and that's still the panel that's got him and Mongoose in it. That's all. Okay. It's a giant L-shaped panel, a backwards L. All right. Well, still, whether it's one panel or not, I kind of read this page in the wrong way. But now that we've gotten past that criticism, Roadblock does this firing straight up. Can you turn the page, right? Okay. Before you turn the page, Greg Augustin says, look how the panel gutter bisects Duke. Which panel is he in? I don't think, is that a panel gutter, or is that where the wall? Right. Yes, I think Duke is, yes, Greg, I don't know what that vertical sliver of gray is that's just behind Duke's head and also sort of behind the handle on Roadblock's machine gun. That's not where like the
it's
wall.
A little bit, yeah, it's a little bit unusual. You've got kind of got an overlapping Roadblock with, it looks like sort of smoke and debris coming away from him shooting, which is then sort of obscuring Duke. So yeah, it's a little bit strange in terms of that overlap. But yeah, I think it's just Roadblock covering up a big panel, but that black line immediately behind Duke is a little bit unclear as to whether that's meant to be a gutter or if that's meant to be part of the.
Okay, so page 13, I wouldn't call it unclear, or I wouldn't go as far as saying confusing. I would say gets in the way of itself. How about that? But what I do like is that I was like, wait, Roadblock's firing straight up? He's not firing up the stairs. I think he's firing straight up. And then there's a very bit of Larry Hama dialogue where Roadblock says, this will make them dance the electric boogaloo, which I both love and also is it's a
super contemporary reference to him.
Yeah. But and then what I thought, wait, are we going to get to see bullets coming like through the floor? And we turn the page and we do. And it's really satisfying because, but also look at the bottom of this first panel on page 14. Krahnke makes it extra clear. It's not just that we're in the upstairs looking down, seeing bullets come through the floor, knocking out these guys. It's that Krahnke includes a little bit of the stairs and a little bit of that edge, the actual beam that their floor is built on the bottom of the panel, and a little bit of the smoke way, way, way on the bottom of the panel for the ground floor down where Roadblock is. So that's nice.
And then we get them sort of the sort of action progresses to clearing what's going out on the street with, we've got quite a lot of sort of actual bullets meeting bodies with red blood from injuries here. Human bodies.
You can be more specific. Bullets going through bodies. This is definitely something that we see in Skybound G.I. Joe that we didn't see in IDW G.I. Joe, and we wouldn't have seen quite in Marvel G.I. Joe. We wouldn't have seen the exit wounds at Marvel, or the blood would be brown, or the characters who are getting shot would be all blacked out as silhouettes. And these bad guys who are getting shot, they're not mutants or cyborgs. They're people. So my other sort of top-down overall reaction to this issue was the action, or maybe the word is violence, is keyed up and specific. It's not like swords slashing and you sort of get the impression. It's and Mongoose and Roadblock even have a little exchange about it, which feels both funny and also a little mean. Do you remember this exchange?
Yeah, they're sort of a little bit jokey about all of this violence, I guess.
This is back on
they talk about
page 8.
Yes, he talks about. Is this where he's talking about Roadblock's talking about his Marge use which is meant to be a kind of anti-tank?
Yeah,
kind of.
Yeah.
Weapon,
can you pull up page 8?
Yeah.
Mongoose has just smashed through that window, and he says, "Those big 50 caliber rounds really shred them up good, huh?" And Roadblock says, "Technically, they're anti-vehicular, but who's reporting me?" And I thought, "Oh wait, is this
a war crime?
Is this against the Geneva Convention,
Yeah.
or if not that, is this like against an American code or sort of a lesser code of combat conduct?" And I'm not sure I know how to feel about this. It might be that this is frowned upon, but technically fair game. It might be that the rules for this weapon of Roadblock's changed over the years. And when this toy came out in the 80s, you were allowed to use this weapon on all sorts of things. And maybe more recently it changed. And maybe this is Hama sort of referring to that. Maybe Roadblock is having a moment of intensity, or I don't want to say cruelty, but intensity here. But I also thought, I mean, these are bad guys trying to kill Roadblock and all the Joes. These bad guys did just injure all of the Joes and also their own guy who they're trying to rescue. I can't have it both ways, right? It's like, Joes, take out the bad guys, but don't take them out too much.
Yeah. Greg says Mongoose is ambidextrous.
I look forward to that. Alex Antone and Larry Hama in Mongoose's file card in the next several issues.
So he said that he was shot in his left arm. He passing shrapnel slashed open my left arm, but I'm still combat effective. And he is shooting from his right, but then I guess by necessity he is shooting from his left arm in this particular scene out of the window, given that Roadblock is taking up so much room, and it must be I guess unpleasant to be shooting using your left arm if it's not your leading arm, but also if you've got shrapnel stuck in it.
Can you go to page 5, Mark, which starts with the dialogue, "I'll cover." So in panel 1, Mongoose is holding his machine gun with his left hand, and then has placed it on the top of the vehicle for covering fire, and is now firing with his right hand and stabilizing with his left hand. So I think there's some continuity glitches here, or he's ambidextrous while he's injured. This one I'm going to let go. It's the other two that I pointed out that I don't actually want to fix, but I just wanted to note.
So the action progresses and we move, I guess, outside as Snake Eyes has to clear the roof and does a little bit more of a sort of Snake Eyes-y thing of, climbing up the drain pipe to the top of the roof, taking out someone as he's doing so, and then clearing that roof with a bit of a hoo-ha kind of iconic pose, shotgun aloft, signaling across to Mongoose that he's been successful, so that the Tomahawk can land safely because their comms were down and they weren't able to signal to Lift Ticket, who was in another Hammerism, in a racetrack holding position above. So he was coming one way or another. So they had to make sure that he could come down safely. And then, as with all of the best G.I. Joe missions, the issue concludes with the team getting onto that Tomahawk and away. I think I concluded, if you remember, Tim, I think 3 out of the 5 Silent Missions issues last April concluded with the Joes boarding a Tomahawk.
I'll be super surprised if any of the Cobra Silent Missions end with anyone getting on a Tomahawk. I thought you were going to phrase it a little differently. This issue ends like all the best issues, or this issue ends like a lot of G.I. Joe issues, where it's a mixed victory, that the Joes did something successful, but also did something unsuccessful, and they are they're happy or proud, but also disappointed. And this is Larry Hama commenting on their ongoing mission. Like, soldiers don't, like, this isn't a John Wayne movie, right? Where he's like,
there's no
follow me.
It's a bit of either like a hollow victory or not quite a victory at all. And we definitely get a few of these in sort of the Hummer writing of a G.I. Joe mission. I sort of always think back to that initial kind of invasion of the Joes of Cobra Island, when just as the island has been formed and they've gone through this intense battle, only to find out that through diplomatic channels it's now recognized as a kind of sovereign territory, and they've just got to stand down and look absolutely crestfallen.
I always think of this as a smaller example. I think it's in 124, where Flint is brought into the Eco Warriors and he gets flown away and the other Joes are not. And they're at Dester's castle or something. And they're like, well, we have to get back to headquarters somehow. And it's actually one of my favorite sort of 1 or 2 panels in all G.I. Joe, because it's this kind of thing. It's like, oh, I don't get to go in the C-130. It's like, no, he does.
Should we wrap up with some?
On this last page, Spirits is wearing his red accessory, which we I think have established is culturally inaccurate to Spirits' Native American tribe, and it had disappeared from the modern action figure and I think some previous comic book appearances. So I like it as a splash of color, and as a kid, this is the figure that I had, and it's like, well, I want to see them all geared up. But I don't want to get anything wrong that's been sort of permanently changed. So I wonder if this is, I'm going to chalk this up to a small oversight on both art and, proofreading. I'm not offended.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know to the sense that it's like culturally offensive or insensitive, but versus being just a little inaccurate. So
Okay.
I'm not the expert on that. I know that they sort of did get rid of that in terms of the classified design, and we've seen him a few times without it since. But I'll let better informed people let me know as to whether they think that's the case, or it's just a slight inaccuracy, which, given the world that we live in G.I. Joe, I can live with things being not quite true to life. So closing thoughts?
Good issue. We should talk about congratulations, Greg Augustin, for getting your drawing in the letters page, and your letter, and we should probably talk about Downrange's file card. Someone, maybe you talk about it for a minute, I can look it up. Someone said something really thoughtful on the Talking Joe Facebook page, and I wanted to sort of
So Downrange has got a Finnish background. She was raised by her Finnish/Sami grandfather in the forests of northern Minnesota, and she's got this interesting name, Hilveli S. Vaisanen, with some interesting accents on the Vaisanen name, and that surname and forename are both sort of from that Finnish background. I looked up both, and it's sort of indicating that they are Finnish. Hilveni, it was noted on the Facebook group, is not necessarily popular or well used Finnish name currently. So our Facebook group member noted that they thought it was a little bit unusual, but there certainly are Finnish people with that name, and on if you do a Wikipedia search for that, it does give you a list of several notable people, mostly Finnish, with that first Hilveli name.
My final comment about this issue was that my thought, and several people's thought, when we met these two new Joes in the last issue was, oh, does G.I. Joe need another sniper? Okay, well, G.I. Joe doesn't have a drone person, so sure, RC can stick around, but Downrange seems like a repetition. And I thought, man, I'd love it if there was some little reference in the comic to like Lowlight, where like Lowlight could say something in the comic, or he shows up for a panel, or he like vouches for her or something. And they read my mind a month ago. I did not put this in an email because the final sentence of Downrange's very cool dossier says, as soon as she joined the G.I. Joe team, Lowlight dubbed her Downrange, and it stuck. And I thought, hey, that thing I wanted to happen happened. Neat.
Yeah, it's because she's got flatulence problems, and he said, "Oh, I wouldn't want to be downrange of that," and then it stuck. I wondered whether Hama slightly regretted the death of Shooter so early on, and sort of losing a female sniper from the team, and this is sort of a slight replacement for that. But so that might be one to ask him when we speak to him. Next, and speaking of next, coming up soon will be the Silent Missions month. Starting in April, we have 5 brand new issues coming from different creative teams, 1 per month. If you have got a pull list, one per week. And if you've got a pull list, and this is coming on top of just the regular ARAH, there is no skip month in April. And yeah, if you've got a pull list at your local comic book shop, make sure that you remind them to add the Silent Missions comics to that list.
I just want to say this as a sentence explicitly. There are 7 new G.I. Joe comic books being released in April of 2026, folks. So you count your lucky Brigadier General stars. on your Hawk
I think
figure.
there might be 8 with the Hama files as well.
There are 7 new
Right.
G.I. Joe comic books being released, and they are all written and drawn by different people. And that is extraordinary. So, yes, Mark is right. If you have a pull list at your store, please let them know if you get Real American Hero that you also want this. It makes their lives a little easier so they don't have to guess. And if you, just put, it's a lot of, we're going to be busy. Lots to podcast about.
The Kickstarter for the IDW set of ARAH compendiums, collecting 155.5 through to 300 with all sorts of extras that will be revealed, is out soon. The launch date for that is later on in March, I want to say. It doesn't say the date on this slide, unfortunately, but and also if you missed out on the original 4 hardcovers, that is being re-released as part of this Kickstarter.
If you're near Boston and you just need that first that first compendium hardcover box, you don't want to deal with Kickstarter, you don't want to deal with shipping. If you just want to come to Hub Comics, we have the G.I. Joe Skybound hardcover compendium box with all 4 hardcovers for sale. You could walk in with money and walk out with those 155 issues plus special missions in a box.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that these won't be out for a little while, so that will be a brand new print run. So to be delivered at the same time. So there will certainly be a bit of a wait if you're looking for these reprints. If you want one in hand, that's where to go. The ARAH mission continues on April 8th, 2026, with the next issue, 327, Stop the Terrordrome. Covergirl, Jinx, and Dawn are running out of time to complete a deadly covert op. And it's about to get tougher with an army of blue ninjas in their way. We will talk about that as it comes out. So, Tim, I think we are done talking about issue 326. So why don't you just remind people where they can find you when you're not talking to me about all things G.I. Joe?
Atomic Abe, that's a YouTube channel. Hub Comics, that's that comic book store in Somerville, Massachusetts. And I write about G.I. Joe at my blog, arealamericanbook.com.
And if you want to check out Tim's comic that he is editing, it is The Centerholds, published by Boom. Issue 1 is out on the shelves, and issue 2 will be out before too very long. If you are new to Talking Joe, you can find out more about us at talkingjoe.co.uk. That is the website that points to all of the places we can be found, including to our Patreon group, patreon.com/talkingjoe. So big thanks to all of our Patreon members, who include Richard, Sam, Shane, Simon, Chris, Joe, Craig D, Shane V2. This one has an unexpected change of weaponry versus what we're used to seeing. Infinite Entertainment, Gary V, Coldroff, and B. Plus, I think Squishy is our latest member as well. We'll add you to the graphic for next time. So I think that is us done, Tim. But before we go, and before everyone then jumps onto the Full Force channel for the latest episode of the Full Force Weekly News Roundup, should they just remember anything in particular?
Yes. Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Laters.